The Lions in the midst of their best season in half a century at minimum. And Rex, look, I've known you a very long time. That fourth down, it works, so he's a genius. There's no way in the world you go for it in that situation.
You're wrong, Greeny. You're dang right I would. And I did it before in a playoff game in a similar situation. All right, but I'm going to say this. He did it. Why? He's leaning on his players. He could care less who the hell you got over there. I'm going to go behind the best tackle in football, Penei Sewell. I'm going to give it to a badass in David Montgomery. Like, that's what he is, and that's who he is. That's the team. By the way, I got to say this.
Yeah.
Everybody sees this Dan Campbell as, oh, he's a Neanderthal, whatever. He's not very smart. Just the opposite. Well, he is a Neanderthal, but he's the smartest thing. He might be the smartest coach in the league. And I can tell you one thing, nobody out-prepares Dan Campbell. And he knows going in every game is a different situation. But this is I don't know if I've seen a coach that has come into the league, and you talk about creating a culture, right? That kind of culture. But a culture is not just your football team in your building. This guy, when you look at what he's done in the football team, his fan base, and his community, nobody has captured it better than Dan Campbell.
Well, let me just read you a text that I got on Friday morning after that game about Dan Campbell. Somebody just texted me and said, Dan Campbell's pulse on his team and his understanding of situational football is second to no other coach in the NFL.
I completely agree. Give me Dan Campbell on the field with me. I'll take it. Don't put Dan Campbell on my sideline. I don't know. I don't know the emotional control of this coach. I mean, every single time. Does it have to be every single time? The 4th and 1, when you're on the 31-yard line going out, that was obvious to me. I mean, this can't happen. I mean, this guy wants to go for it even now, and they get stopped right here and basically give Green Bay a touchdown because all they got to go is like 29 yards, and they score a touchdown here, and it's a different game. So you wouldn't have been in this situation maybe if you punt it and you let your defense play against a quarterback that has the tendency to throw to the other team also. This is every single time? Why does it have to be every single time? No, let me say something here, because Dan Campbell came into this league talking about being kicked down and biting on ankles and chewing on kneecaps. Well, there's no more, and let me tell you, Detroit Lion fans, there's no more ankles and kneecaps to bite. You're on top. Start playing like it and start coaching like it, because sometimes you got to know when to be in a game to where let the other team mess up because I know I'm better, because it's going to give us a better chance to win. There are those situations that I don't think Dan Campbell knows right now that he still has to learn. And I have been watching him this entire season based on the way last season ended. Okay, did he learn in the offseason? Maybe he's a little less emotional. He is not. He's the same player. And this could come back to bite him.
I just think it's so funny because I can't disagree more than that right there, Brew. And I certainly understand your opinion and things like that. That's great. I just think it's wrong, and I'm going to say why. They have 18 players out on that defense. So who are you going to lean on? Your offense, who's the best in the league, or a defense that, when healthy, is one of the best in the league? They're not healthy. They had 18 players out. Every game is different. And, by the way, if they make one catch in that championship game, they win that game. Okay, because everybody points out to that one. Make one catch. The kid dropped 2 balls. By the way, he's no longer a Lion. All right, and so to me, they got somebody else named Tim Patrick, who, by the way, was on the bricks. Just another guy, that fits in their culture. They bring in guys. They understand the culture of their building more than anybody. And you know what? Every man on that team, on that sideline, is like, whatever coach says, we're behind them. And that's what I'm saying. And if you were on that team, Brew, you would be like, let's go, Dan.
I would be fired up, Rex. I know. But if my coach tells me it's like we're going for it, it doesn't matter. Every time we're going for it, I'm like, every time.
I don't think he's saying that. I think he's saying that in this situation. You got to understand. You got to understand.
You see how I'm torn with this whole thing. You know what I mean?
And you're never going to be perfect situationally as a head coach. You got to understand, it won them the game. What's getting lost in here is they hit a 4th and goal from the 2 and a 4th and goal from the 3 that won the game, right? They went 4 for 5 in it situationally. And I think that you have to take it out of a vacuum. This offense isn't just good. This is a historic offense. This offense is unbelievable. And I totally agree. In this situation, against a division opponent with all the injuries on defense, these were the right decisions, right? This won them the football game. And I don't think this is just some stubborn, hard-headed thing. It will change week to week. I don't think this is just we're going to go for it every single time.
I go up and down and watching this guy, and I'm like, it's like I'm on an emotional roller coaster watching him too. It's like, yeah, this is the one, do it. And this is the other one, no, don't do it here. But I understand the whole one way. We're one way, and this is the way we need to do it. I don't think you win a championship that way, because I think there's one of those playoff games where discretion is going to have to be used. And I hope Dan can find that difference in when there's emotion and proving your point, and then also discretion.
Brew, I think the whole thing is once he gets all his pieces back, there's no way he goes for it backed up in his 30. You know what I'm saying?
All right.
But I think going into his team, in all fairness, he was like, no. Guys, the best shot we got is to go for it on 4th down. And I know for a fact he told his team that. So, I mean, and the great thing is, but they're all in, like that whole building. And they know it's a week-to-week thing. And all of a sudden, you start getting some pieces back on that defense, who, by the way, Aaron Glenn, the job that Aaron Glenn has been amazing as well.
Our show, Get Up, we've made Tomlin into a verb. The Steelers are Tomlining their way into a great record. This feels different this year, Rex. Has Mike Tomlin found a formula that this team could actually use to win the AFC?
Absolutely, Greeny. I think the AFC's down a little bit. His team is much better than it's been. And in this league, coaching still matters. It still matters. And Mike Tomlin, nobody does it better than him, certainly not me. But I'm just telling you that the way they run the football, protect the quarterback and let Russell do his thing, let him cook a little bit. And that was the thing you were more impressed with over last week, I know, Alex, when we were talking yesterday.
No doubt. For me, it's almost an extra gear, Greeny. I mean, I think we've seen or been accustomed to seeing the Steelers win ugly, right? Win with a formula. Hey, 10-13, a big defensive battle. Well, last week looked completely different. This was a shootout, right? That he walked into one of the best offenses and one of the best quarterbacks in Joe Burrow and went toe-to-toe and, in fact, outmatched him. I mean, 400 yards. There was a clear, conscious decision to throw the football and put the ball in Russ's hands. And he delivered. I mean, for me, this was an extra gear that we have not seen from the Pittsburgh Steelers in the past few years, right? These Tomlin years that we've seen. Again, this team is one of the few teams in the AFC that's doing this up and to the right and improving.
Yeah, for Tomlin to have the ability, I mean, I'll quote him, the standard is the standard, and how he sets the tone for the team. What that does to veteran players is that when I hear a message from my head coach that's so strong and so valuable to all players, it's like, all right, my leadership is going to be there. All we're going to do is complement each other. And that's what Sal referenced instead of Russell and Tomlin sort of tag teaming on Pickens. Because let's be honest, this is a loose cannon at wide receiver. Okay? This is someone that decides when they play hard. This is someone that has penalties that can sometimes hurt the team based on emotions. Now, Tomlin and Wilson and that offense, this can hold you back. This is a problem that I foresee if you're in critical situations like today, all right, and where there's a lot of trash talking going on, and you've got an emotionally unstable kid out there that all of a sudden there's a 15-yard penalty and people are worrying about getting his mind right. I don't know. Have you ever had an emotionally unstable wide receiver? How do quarterbacks have to deal with that?
You know, yeah, receivers are they're tumultuous, right? They want the ball. They're competitive. I'll say this, though. This kid is maybe the best big play receiver in the NFL, and he's young. And I think to have a guy like Tomlin, to have Russ, to kind of give that positivity and hopefully kind of quiet the noise a little bit may help. They need him.
You say big play. They say, the people around the league, he is as talented as any receiver in the league. It's eliminating all these distractions. Yeah. Ironically enough, when talking to George Pickens earlier this year, the guy that he loves more than anybody, the guy that he looked to more than anybody was Randy Moss. We tried to FaceTime George Pickens on numerous occasions before the show began, and we could never get him on the phone. We continued to try. He's got to be there today. And we go back to the quarterbacks. That is the big difference in this team. They have taken to Justin Fields, and they've taken to Russell Wilson. They love Justin Fields, and they love Russell Wilson. And this is why Mike Tomlin made this change, because this team has always been good and competitive, but it's lacked since Ben Roethlisberger retired, the quarterback to help it get to the next level.
Can I go back to something real quick on the point about Pickens?
Yeah,
you know what we would do,
How would
Drew?
you deal with that? Yeah.
Well, you know what we'd do? We'd roll every coverage to him early. I don't want him catching a single ball in the first quarter, at least. All right, and reason for it, I want him upset on that sideline. I want him getting out of his game and out of his mind. That's what you do with some of these hotheads like that. Yeah. that you've got a veteran defensive coordinator in Jim Schwartz.
Yeah.
Watch for that today. See if they don't roll their coverage.
The pressure gauge has only started to rise, okay, in these games. And we've got multiple weeks left where there's going to be more and more and more on the line. And how this guy is managed is something that we definitely should be watching.
Final note on this on Russ and what he's done for this offense. Since taking over, I don't think people know this. They are second in the NFL in yards offensively, sixth in points, right? Like, this isn't, again, this pedestrian offense as we've seen in Pittsburgh for the last 5-6 years. This is not it this year.
Part of that is the competition that they played, but the other part of it's enough weeks now that you can't hold that against them. Again, the most important part of this will be Sal's eyes on George Pickens in warm-up, so we need to make sure he's going to play before we can get to any of that.